Welcome to my basic Rimworld guide for beginners. Today I will be covering the important tasks that I think you need to complete on your first day on this magical Rimworld. First thing you want to do is pause the game once your characters crash land like so. You can pause the game by clicking spacebar, or down here you have the varying levels of speed that you can pick to play your game. Next step is going to be taking stock. What I mean by this is we're going to have to allow all the wood, the steel, all the equipment that we have, so our characters, when they can start moving it, they're allowed to touch it. Otherwise, they won't use it. You can do this by dragging over the items and either clicking the F button on your keyboard or just clicking here. What we are going to do is we are going to do that for all the items, and you can group them up by holding the Shift key. Some items are hidden under characters and can be a bit tricky to find. Once we have done that, we are now going to equip guns and weapons to our people. Oh, we even missed some flak pants. Got to be careful, there's always going to be items around the map that are disallowed. Make sure you check. So when we're equipping people, we need to make sure we know who's good at shooting, and we do that by the bio page here. So here we can tell that Bowman has 11 shooting, so he might be our hunter. Hunters are going to need good shooting. Here we have 0 and 2 melee. And Burton has 0 and 0. So that pretty much makes our decision very easy. Bowman's going to be our hunter, and as a hunter he is going to want a ranged weapon. Just in case the animals attack, he doesn't have to get close to them. All you do is you right click the gun or weapon that you want him to use, and if he is able, for instance, he might not be able to if he is incapable of something. Right click and equipped the weapon. Helena is going to then have the pistol. Scratch that. Burton's going to have the pistol because Helena, at least she's got 2 in melee, so it makes more sense doing it that way round. Next step is just to recon the map. What do I mean when I say this? We want to have a look around the map. Now we're looking for a number of things. We're looking for these steam geysers, which eventually, after a bit of research, you can put a building on top of them and get a lot of power to be able to power your civilization. We're also looking for resources such as steel, wood, but there's an abundance on that on this map. Compacted machinery that we're going to need to make more complex items. And especially for beginners, it's really good finding a place like this, where it's a ruin that's been left by maybe another civilization, we're not really sure. But it'll be really easy to wall this off and use this as one of our first rooms. Here we can see some cheeky wood that has evaded me, so we're just going to make sure we allow that, otherwise our people won't come and use them. These are berry bushes. Now these are really good because they keep giving us food over time and we can harvest them, but we'll tackle that later. So after we've done our recon, we have now decided that this is going to be our initial base. It's important to know that we need to get a single building up ASAP. Why is this? Because if our colonists are not sleeping under a roof in an enclosed environment, they're going to get a mood decrease. Bowman, for example, we can see his needs here, and this shows you when his mood is. When his mood drops to a certain level, he will then lose the plot. This can happen in numerous ways, where he could go on a destructive streak, he could attack other people, or he could just go on a daze for a day, not being able to do any work. All doesn't sound great. Also beware, if you do want to start digging in mountains or hills, it might be worth just getting up a simple wall or simple construction first, just to make sure you have that initial day under the roof, so then you can dig to your heart's content until you've got your mountain base. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to want to enclose this building, because as we can see here, it's got a very open wound in it, and we need to seal this so our people can have a nice rest on day one. So you come down to this button here, the Architect tab, and this is your button that you're going to use for everything. We're going to start on instructions, and for the beginning, because we have ample amount of wood, as we can see around here, not that steel, just that wood, and some wood up here, we're going to just build a basic wooden structure. It is worth noting that wood can be set on fire from numerous events, so always be careful building a base out of wood when you're around lots of trees. So it's as simple as clicking on the wooden wall and dragging it to where you want it. Lovely stuff. We're also going to want to go into zone, and we're going to want to build a roof area over this section just so we know our people are under a roof. It's complicated stuff, guys. Only joking. If you don't know, you don't know. Then we want to go to furniture, and we want to build 3 simple wooden beds. This will give a modifier of comfort to our people rather than letting them lay on the floor. Next is the work tab. Now, this can be confusing to new players, so if you want to leave it, that's absolutely fine. Obviously, your characters won't be optimized to the best, but that's absolutely fine. For you that do want to know about it, you just click this X here and it turns into numbers. Scary stuff. All you've got to know is if all of these are on the same numbers, the game will automatically prioritize the furthest to the left option. For example, if there is a growing task for Helena, and there is also a fire, because fire is on the far left, she will do that first. The best way I feel to set these up is by making sure all of these are number 1. Now, for more advanced players, obviously they're going to want to be a bit more advanced about it, cheeky about it, but for us beginners, we're absolutely fine with stuff like that. I would say all the way up to handling, because you normally start with an animal. We'll cover animals later. For stuff here, I always make sure that characters that have passions for stuff are always ranked 1. You always want a cook, a hunter, someone that can construct and growing. Everything else can sort of be left for the time being. We'll just make sure someone's cutting plants, because this will be trees and stuff, but obviously they're going to do it second to the other options. I always think it's always good to have a cook straight away, because you got to get their meals. People will starve. And if you want a wall built, it needs to go up. We'll leave that for the time being, because I don't want to overload you for the first episode. Now we're going to go over stockpiles. Over to our architect button, we're going to go to zone, and we're going to make a couple of stockpiles. Now the reason why I'm going to make a couple of stockpiles is just to quickly go over some of the options that you do have in this game. Obviously you can build rooms for them and stuff like that, which is also cool. We are also going to make a dumping stockpile. Now you don't normally want this close to your base, but for the purposes of this video we're going to have it near. Normally just have it just up here. Because if there's any corpses or stuff like that, your people aren't going to want to see them. So we're going to click on the dumping stockpile, and as we can say is all the rules for all the things that you want in there. The only thing we're going to change is we do not want animal corpses in there. Now when I say a corpse, it means just a dead animal. So for instance, if you've just killed a gazelle, it will go in there. If you're trying to be optimal, you might want it in the cooking pile. For example, this pile here is going to be our cooking pile. What we are going to want in here is animal corpses and all different meals. This game isn't fussy if you have cooked meals with raw meals. Don't tell Gordon Ramsay that. This stockpile we're just going to have for general items, so the only thing we're going to take away is rotten and fresh, because these two are going to cover that. Everything else looks good. We've got an extra stockpile that we don't need at the minute, so we just hit the delete button here. Everything has a keyboard shortcut that is displayed in the top left hand corner. Very nice. So what these stockpiles mean is when you unpause the game, as the work tab says, on priority 3, they will then haul stuff to said stockpiles. Now let's say one of these stockpiles overlapped the other. So let's say on this stockpile, I did allow animal corpses. Hang on, I hear you say. This stockpile here also does it. If you want to make sure this stockpile is always filled first, you change the priority to a higher level than this one. So that means when an animal gets killed, as long as there is space in this stockpile, it will go here first. If there is no space in this stockpile, it will go here. Lovely little feature. If there's not a space in a stockpile for a said item, it will just be left on the floor wherever it is. It is worth noting that items do deteriorate over the time, such as weapons and stuff like that, but then some items don't. How do we check this? By clicking on the package survival build, we can see here it's deteriorating because unroofed and it's outdoors. It's currently at 50 to 50. Here we can see still doesn't have that, so you can get away with it. But you might want it close to base because if you want to build something, you don't want to have to run miles down here every time you want to build something using steel. Farming is the next big thing. So a big thing about Rimworld is you're going to need food, as I've sort of briefly gone over, to survive. For farming, you want this little button here. It's toggle fertility. It's to toggle the soil. Let's click it. There we go. So as we can see the growing zones. What does this mean? The orange is stony soil. You want to avoid that. Areas that aren't covered in a colour, you cannot grow there. This nice green, this minty green, is just a normal soil. And this lovely green over here is rich soil. Rich soil basically means stuff grows quicker. Is that very important, I hear you say? It can be, but it's not absolute. We are not going to worry that because we do not want to trace all the way over here to grow everything. Now perhaps when we were reconning the area, maybe in this little base here would have been a better fit for us. We would have been able to use the mountains as defence, and we would have had a rich soil next to us. But alas, this is where we are for the time being. We can always move later. It's really easy. Being able to check where the soil is, we are now going to come down to Architect, and we are going to click Growing Zones. We are just going to make 4 for the time being, and we're going to make them quite big. So it is worth knowing you can grow a multiple of different things, but require different levels to do each. For example, hop plant, you will need someone with a skill level of 3, and so on and so on. When characters are naturally doing these tasks, they grow in experience level gradually. As we go into Bowman, and we go into Bio, if we hover over plants, we can see progress to the next level. That means once that number, 3,621, gradually goes up to 5,000, they will go into the next level. Skills that aren't used awful lot can go down as well, but that's fine if you've got someone else covering them. Crops can be attacked via events such as cold snaps, blights, which will require you to deal with them. We'll cover them as we see them, we don't need to worry as of yet. Also important to know, so to grow, we click on one of these zones, and we literally just click what we want. What's important to know is rice is the fastest food crop, and corn is the longest. Rice, obviously, you don't get as much as corn. And you can't eat rice raw. Well, you can, but your characters will get a negative mood effect for eating raw food. It's also worth noting that crops like potatoes are less affected by the soil and can be grown in a multiple of different circumstances, and you can sort of get away with it. So for the time being, we're going to make 2 potatoes and 1 rice. Why are we doing that? The potatoes we're going to get more than the rice, but the rice will be up quicker. So the rice will hopefully be able to feed us just in time for the 2 potatoes. We have 1 more, which we are going to go cotton. Now why we are growing cotton is because cotton can be used once harvested to make different clothing, or to sell. We will cover that when we get there. To unclick this horrible green that's surely going to blind you if you keep staring at it, we click this button here. What I have noticed is we've missed some more resources, so we are going to highlight them and allow them. We're also going to set up a few more instructions for our colonists just before we unpause the game. So we'll head to our Architects button, and we're going to click Orders. And we want to chop wood. So again, the hotkey is up there, but just clicking it is fine. To cut trees, you literally drag over them, or you can click them individually. It's up to you, but we want to chop just a few down. The reason why we do a few and not a lot is I don't want all their time on day one to be used cutting trees when we only need wood for this much and we're going to have enough with us. We just want some extra in case we want to build anything in future. We've already got it stockpiled. Other important resources are hill root, these plants here. Now, you can tell if they've grown or not by down here, and it gives you the percentage or not. So you want to wait until that's 100%, and that is basically a really cheap medicine that's not great. On Crash Landed, we do start with some really good medicine, but depending on what happens, we might not want to use that day one. We'll cover that later. Also, berry bushes are really good, and you can eat them raw, and you don't get a negative food modifier. Just like corn is worth saying, you can eat that raw as well. We have some steel here, and we're going to set a task to mine a bit of steel as well, just so we have that all ready and all ready to go. So that's it for the first episode, everyone. But don't worry, we're going to unpause it, and we're going to see our colonists go to work. So you can either unpause it by clicking the spacebar, or by clicking this button here. We're going to play on speed 1, and we can also see we have an animal, Kip, the yak. Now you can set them to get trained and stuff like that, which is really, really cool. In the training tab, we can see here what they can do at the moment. Coming down to animals here, and we can see all the things that he is able to do. Sadly, doesn't look like he can do much yet, but that's absolutely fine. But what we want to do is make sure he's not hunted. So we want to go to Architect, Zone, coming over to Expand Allowed Area. If we hover over Home, this is our home area. This means if there is a fire in this area, our colonists will come and put it out. It means other stuff, but we'll cover that later. What we want to make sure is that our yak, Kip, is only staying in the home area. If he's in unrestricted, he will wander the map. This is dangerous for him as there might be predators. Going down to the wildlife tab, we can see all the animals that are on our map. Animals with this symbol are predators. When they're hungry, they will kill, and if there are no little creatures, they will come hunt us. We can also see the arrow pointing to this lynx that is right in front of our base. So we do need to be careful. Boomalopes explode when you try to attack them, so do be careful. And this percentage is the percentage chance of the animal trying to attack you if you are hunting it. So do be careful. As we can see, our colonists are getting off to a great start on day 1. We're going to hit speed 3, and you can see them march along and make everything, which is absolutely lovely. You can also hover your mouse over the home area, and on the right hand side you can see it now says indoors and the temperature given. Very, very good. And if you go outside, you can see outdoors 20 degrees. This gives you a little bit of understanding to how hot or how cold it is. You can see Helena's growing, and we're all setting up really nicely. Our stockpile is getting nice and filled, but it looks like it's getting filled a bit too quickly. So what we are going to do is we are going to expand it by clicking this button here, dragging it across the stockpile like so, and there we go. So now we've got a bigger stockpile. Because we know these items deteriorate, we are going to build a little bit of a warehouse, but that will be in the next episode. And that is pretty much heading us in to the end of day 1. If you've gotten to this part of the video, feel free to leave a comment of what you would like me to cover or other tips that you think I've missed for beginners. Like and subscribe for more of my beautiful voice, and I shall see you next time. Bye!